All right, welcome back to another episode of EventHubs Talk and Block. I am John Catalyst Gray, and with me as always is John Velociraptor Guerrero.
Hey, so much new information for Street Fighter 6. We've talked about the characters. Now there's three distinct modes that they have released information on, two of which we knew were coming, and a third one that turns Street Fighter 6 into what I'm calling Super Smash Bros. Fighter 6. A lot of interesting stuff here, so we'll get into all of that. But maybe we should start with the one that we've known about for the longest, this World Tour mode, this sort of third-person, open-world exploration through Metro City and beyond. We saw a ton in the way of what this is going to look like, customizations of your avatar, interactions with established Street Fighter characters. John, what are your first thoughts from what we've seen with World Tour mode today?
Yeah, they basically said this is very innovative for fighting games, and I do agree. This is they actually, I think, quoted or cited Shenmue as an inspiration here for this, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of fighting game fans who love that Sega Dreamcast series of games, and there's a lot of options available to tweak. Like they've got the gear system basically where you can use the gear bucks. I'm trying to remember the exact name of it. What is it called? Drive tickets to buy gear for your avatar. So Street Fighter 6 has confirmed an in-game economy just like Fight Money in the new title. And this looks pretty cool because you go around and you meet various masters, Ryu, Chun-Li, all these other people, and they teach you moves, and you can kind of use these moves to traverse all around, the planet basically, and unlock new areas and kind of do that kind of stuff. The only complaint I've had with the World Tour mode so far is like graphically, it actually looks like a decent downgrade from the rest of the game, which is interesting. It's like, okay, this is the same game. Why does the World Tour mode not look as good as like the other stages and the other setups in the game? The graphic fidelity just does not look like it's on the same level.
Wouldn't that just be because you have this massive world that you're loading sort of simultaneously, and I mean, it's not Cyberpunk 2024, right? So
2077, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know numbers. I just know words. I'm a languager.
That could be the reason. I mean, because there's a lot more going on screen, but that is the one thing about this that so far feels lackluster. And it's like, okay, like graphically, like you should be able to beef up the fidelity on there without issue, especially with the next generation hardware and all that kind of stuff this game is running on. So it feels a little off there, but overall,
I think we also just recently saw Tekken 8's story mode trailer, and that's making everything else look like dog poo. So. Yeah. But yeah, World Tour, one of the things that Street Fighter has not really had, and that we were sort of talking about and hoping for back in the Street Fighter 5 days, was customization. And you can manipulate seemingly just about everything about your avatar. We're talking like jaw lines and shape of your face, down to what color your hair is and how much of your hair is dyed versus not, the skin color and accessories, and just about everything. It seems like your body type and which parts of your body are fat, and if you're fat or muscular, and if you're cut or built, and just everything. People are going to be able to make this very much their own unique experience. They're going to be able to put their stamp onto characters, and that has been a very, very important thing for gaming in general. We've seen so much of the success of more modern games be because you can put your own stamp in there and be your own character, express yourself in that way, and this is giving people it's like a jump from we didn't really do that almost at all to we've put every trick in the book into this new game and this experience. And not only that, like you were saying, you got gear, but that gear can help you out. It can buff certain stats. It's not all just aesthetic, certain stats. And this is all in World Tour mode, right? So I think this is a single player mode completely, and you're just going to be interacting with computer opponents and whatnot, but still very interesting. And it's here's what I've worried, is that this is just going to be sort of a throwaway mode that you play for a few hours and you kind of get the idea and then you're done with it. But the more I see of it, man, you're going to be logging a lot of time into this, and if it's correctly synced up with the rest of the game's modes and the rest of the economy, like you want to play through World Tour because you get your rewards for the day or whatever it is, and that feels right, you're going to have a really well-rounded experience, and you're going to give people a lot of reasons to turn on Street Fighter 6 as opposed to just only when my friends are around or only when it's the right time of day because the internet's going to be good or whatever it is.
Yeah. In speaking a little bit more about it, your custom character actually levels up like an RPG by fighting and such, and it looks like some of these modes resemble Final Fight like gameplay, which is a perfect game to take from. And with multiple enemies coming at you, and of course you get to use all your attacks and stuff like that, and then your character levels up, you unlock more things. There's also an exploration aspect of this I mentioned before, but like it shows like a character doing the spinning bird kick from one platform over to another, so you're going to be able to probably find and unlock areas by getting these specials by leveling up and other stuff. Yep. It's actually fairly cool. Got a little bit of a Mario Odyssey, kind of thing going on where exploration is going to be a part of this for pretty much the first time ever in a fighting game that I can remember.
Well, in Mortal Kombat 11, and I think Mortal Kombat X, but I didn't play as much of that. But in Mortal Kombat 11, you could go through the single player in the crypt actually, and you could find things like Scorpion's Spear or Raiden's Staff or Kung Lao's hat, and finding those would give you access to new areas. Like once you found Scorpion's Spear, you could shoot it across this cavern and make the bridge appear or something like that. So that kind of a thing has happened, but I do like that, and I do like that incorporation. Like you were getting at, you run into various masters, and I don't mean Ken Masters, although he seems to be one of them, but masters being established Street Fighter characters, so Chun, Ryu, Ken, the likes of them in World Tour mode. And when you do, they teach you some of their techniques. And like you say, spinning bird kick to reach a new place because you levitate for a while, right? So maybe you can't cross a particular area until you learn this move. We see Dalsum teleport, which I have to imagine is going to function in a similar way. And maybe you can't, break down some barrier until you learn the Hadouken. But that is a very cool way of implementing, fighting games into this exploration, which those don't seem to mesh very well right on, first thought. But this is a cool way of doing it.
Yeah, so much there that they can do, and it will be really interesting to see if they implement some of the concepts we talked about, like, Gouken teaching you to throw a fireball for the first time or whatever, and all this kind of stuff that you could put into these games to really make them very fun and just have a very well-rounded experience. It's shaping up to look quite good, but of course we won't know until we get our hands on it and actually play it. What looks good on paper is not always good in practice.
Right. So World Tour is not the only mode that we got to see, though, today. So there, in addition to that, there is the Battle Hub, and that seems to be your online interface menu / lobby / hangout spot for you to interact with other people that are also there in the Battle Hub. But how did that strike you? Anything that jumped out to you immediately?
Yeah, the Battle Hub is kind of a replacement here for Lobbies, which I actually prefer this method over, the prior one, where you can kind of roam around and whatnot. But the Battle Hub is limited to 100 players at the same time. There actually looks like there's a music and DJ mode as well, which is kind of cool. Maybe you can play some of the soundtracks and stuff from there, and remix it a little bit or do whatever.
There's photo mode. This looks like a party, like an after party after Capcom Cup. Half of the things that would be there, you can go up and pose with a Hadouken or something, or go to the cabinets and play, Street Fighter 2 or whatever. But you were saying,
that's a really good example of it. And then there's an arcade area actually besides Street Fighter 6, where it includes games like Final Fight, Captain Commando, and Sun, and more. And this single player content actually changes daily, so you might have access to Final Fight one day, but it's going to change to another thing another day. So you can also spectate others while you're playing. It's quite interesting how they've set up this area and to make it pretty diverse.
Well, Nakayama, I think he said there's going to be reason for you to want to come back and check this mode out every day. And this, again, might be part of that. This feeds into the rest of the Street Fighter 6 experience. Like when you boot this game up, you have your sort of checklist of things you need to do. I need to go into Battle Hub and make, I get my first win of the day and win with a Shoto or try out the new game that's available, and you get some kind of in-game currency. But as long as all that feels meaningful, you're going to have it. They've very much set up the pillars that you would need for a thriving, enticing, and exciting in-game economy. And that has very much become the thread that runs through modern games, And if that's not there, and that's not causing people to basically causing your eyes to move around a picture, it's causing your, to move around the experience of a game. If you don't have that in a modern game, you're really missing out. You're a three-legged dog at that point, kind of a thing, because everybody else is doing that sort of a thing, and it's a big reason to engage with these. So this looks good too.
In recapturing that arcade feel, recapturing that energy that comes from attending a tournament and putting that in the game, it's a really smart thing to do. It's peanut butter and jelly. It goes right together. Do this stuff, and it's a great feeling of fun and engagement when you have it. So you want to talk about extra battle,
I think
John?
we should get into
Smash mode.
It's not extra battle. It's
extreme battle. Extreme battle.
And that extreme is all capitals and underlined because we've got stuff like exploding balls and charging bulls and electrified hazards in the middle of your Street Fighter experience. This is goofymode.com, and I am excited for it. The magic that is Super Smash Bros. Captures a lot of people, a big audience, and a big reason for that is because you can just go in and have fun and be zany. This mode seems to be Street Fighter trying, or Capcom trying to tap into a little bit more of that. You'll still have Street Fighter, you'll still have your classic experience, but you can also go ham and change the rules, change the victory requirements, and have bouncy explosive balls and bulls running through trying to stab you with their horns while you're trying to get off a Hadouken. It's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, as you said before, this is best thought of as kind of like Smash with items in it. Certainly not at that level of crazy in it, but it also probably won't be played by the competitive community pretty much at all. Maybe they'll have
Combo Breaker side tournament or random tournaments, like
exactly.
The first to 5 knockdowns.
We had the Rose Ball stuff and all that stuff from back in the day, and like that will probably be how this manifests itself. But that's still a good option to have for a full-featured, probably $70 game. It could be a $60 game. My guess is going to be $70 as the new standard is. And you want the stuff in there. And again, it's this, as I mentioned before, it feels so much more like Street Fighter 4 with the momentum here behind the game and all the options that came with it. Like it's like, oh, this is actually a full-featured game now, and it's like, yeah, they're doing it right.
And some of these, like we've had Tekken volleyball, is it, or beach ball in older Tekken games for a long time, right? A lot of this isn't necessarily all that new, although maybe their approach to it will be, we'll have to see when we actually play it. But this adds, the first Street Fighter and the second Street Fighter and the third Street Fighter all had mini games, break the car and the barrels and the parry game. So this has been part of the Street Fighter experience to a small but very lasting degree for forever. But now it looks like they're really leaning into it and just like, and it's not just in arcade mode, it's this whole thing that you could probably go and try to get your best score with the ball thing or like a parry game or whatever it is. But again, another reason to pick up the game, another reason that, someone that maybe isn't super interested in getting to the top of the online leaderboards might be like, yeah, but I'm going to be the best, bouncy explosive ball guile on the planet. And again, one of the as we were reporting this news, one of my friends who doesn't play competitive fighting games hardly at all, but just a casual gamer, messaged me and goes, dude, I just saw all of that Street Fighter stuff. They have customization. That's huge. And I wasn't sure if he was being sarcastic or not, because we have this kind of sarcastic back and forth. But I was like, I mean, yes, but is it? He's like, no, like this is the kind of thing that a lot more people are going to care about. And it's arbitrary, right? But there's one example right off the bat of a more casual gamer who's like, yeah, I'll give Street Fighter 6 more of attention than I gave anything up until this point.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, bonus stages are actually back. It looks like they're calling it like scrap heap mode or something like that, and it has the retro graphics, which may be a filter like what's available right now in Street Fighter 5. It came in just a very recent patch and whatnot. So I'm assuming you can play with the traditional graphics as well as all these filters and offline modes. And who knows how many bonus stage stuff they're going to add in there, but those have been... I don't think you can do a Street Fighter game anymore and not have bonus stages in there. Like, I just think that's a crappy move for Capcom to do ever. And the fact that they're showing that off right now and it's going to be available at launch, it's such a big deal. A lot of people love the bonuses. And I mean, if they can implement stuff like, the Sean basketball parries and all that other kind of stuff and make that fun and challenging and do all this kind of stuff like that, that's great stuff to train people up. And some people just enjoy playing those modes just to do the trials, kind of thing. It's the old school trials, not the new ones that started with Street Fighter 4, where can you do this combo route? It's like, well, can you perfect the bonus mode, right? People are used to doing that stuff, so it's really nice to see it back.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd want to point out is some of the changes, or I actually only really know one, but the changes in victory requirements in some of these, extreme battle modes. There's one thing where you can get rid of the life bars, and it's just the first to get 5 knockdowns. And I think that's interesting too, because that'll change how you're going to play things, right? It doesn't matter if you have a really great combo that leaves them standing. That combo is worthless in this mode. And it's just even little changes like that will update how you have to see the game in order to play it. And inevitably, that's always going to refine a part of your game that you haven't really been paying as much attention to. It's just like playing a different character. You know, all of a sudden, oh, this opens my eyes in a whole new way. And again, as long as this is inviting and something that people legitimately have reason to engage with and have fun while they do it, this is a great experience so far. This setting up to be.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that they're doing a beta test here fairly soon. And when they did a beta test with Street Fighter V, that happened in later July of 2015, and then they did a few more tests in August of 2015 as well. And then we know that Street Fighter V launched in early February, later on. This is looking like this game is not super far away. When you're starting to get into stuff like, beta test and other things, I really think that the 2023 we've been seeing is probably going to be early 2023. That's what we've been hearing. Of course, no direct official confirmation of that. Release it when it's done. Always do that. But if they're already setting up for beta test, this game is probably coming sooner rather than later. And look no further than TGS. We got 4 character reveals with a bunch of modes. TGS is one of the most important events of the year. So no, not too surprising there, but also they're sending out all their content here fairly quickly. I think they're getting fairly confident that they can launch the game in that window of time. So we'll see, but I don't think Street Fighter 6 is super far off.